I'm Jessica, 34 years old and what you might call a successful real estate investor. For years of marriage to Michael, both of us working tirelessly to build our perfect life together. Tonight, our anniversary, I sit alone at our dining table, candles melting beside the untouched meal I prepared. My phone lights up. Stuck at work. Sorry, babe. But the location pin I check tells a different story. Le Petit Chateau, the most expensive French restaurant in town. My heart sinks, but something inside me hardens. If you've ever had your trust shattered, drop a like and subscribe. Trust me, you'll want to hear how this ends. Let me take you back to where it all began. I wasn't born wealthy. Far from it. Growing up in a modest neighborhood in Portland with a single mom who worked 3 jobs to keep a roof over our heads taught me the value of independence early on. By 25, I'd saved enough from my marketing job to purchase my first property, a rundown duplex that I renovated on weekends. That first investment grew into 5 properties by the time I was 28, then 15 by 30. I built my real estate empire brick by brick, deal by deal. I met Michael at a charity fundraiser for children's education. I was there to network with potential investors. He was representing his investment bank. Tall, with thoughtful brown eyes and a smile that appeared genuine among the sea of plastic socialite grins, Michael stood out immediately. When he approached me with 2 glasses of champagne and actual questions about my business rather than my dress, I was intrigued. "So you're the one everyone's talking about," he said, handing me a flute. "The woman who turned $3 million into 15 in under 2 years. I raised an eyebrow. "And you're the one doing due diligence before making an approach." I appreciate thoroughness. We spent the entire evening in conversation, missing both the charity auction and the keynote speech. Michael wasn't just handsome, he was brilliant with numbers and strategy. As an investment banker at Prescott & Shaw, he understood market fluctuations and risk assessment. Our conversation flowed from business to personal histories, discovering shared values about hard work and ambition. Our first official date was the following weekend. He took me to a small jazz club downtown, off the beaten path. "Anyone can make reservations at the trendiest restaurant," he explained. I wanted somewhere we could actually talk. That night revealed our complementary natures. I was intuitive, sometimes impulsive, with a gift for seeing potential in overlooked properties. Michael was methodical, analytical, a master of the long game. Within 6 months, we were inseparable. Our relationship progressed rapidly but never felt rushed. At our 1-year anniversary, Michael proposed during a weekend trip to Napa Valley. The ring was perfect, a vintage emerald-cut diamond that showed he'd paid attention when I mentioned once that traditional engagement rings weren't my style. "I want to build something lasting with you, Jessica," he said, down on one knee among the vineyards. "Something that appreciates in value, like one of your properties." Our wedding 9 months later wasn't extravagant, but was certainly elegant. 120 guests at the Botanical Gardens, where natural beauty minimized the need for excessive decorations. My sister Lauren was my maid of honor, while Michael's college roommate James served as best man. Michael's parents, Richard and Patricia, welcomed me warmly into their family, impressed by my business acumen and independence. After honeymooning in Greece, we settled into married life with ease. We purchased a historic Tudor in the prestigious West Hills neighborhood, a property with good bones that needed modernizing. Weekends were spent selecting fixtures and finishes, debating paint colors, and transforming the space into our sanctuary. Michael deferred to my expertise on most renovation decisions, but contributed brilliant ideas for the home office we would share and the wine cellar he envisioned for the basement. Those first 2 years were beautiful. We hosted dinner parties where our diverse friend groups merged seamlessly. We took weekend trips to the coast and established traditions like Sunday morning farmers market visits. We talked about children as a someday plan, both focused on our careers for the present. Michael's career at Prescott and Shaw flourished. His team consistently outperformed projections, earning him a significant promotion to senior investment director by our second anniversary. I continued expanding my real estate portfolio, now focusing on commercial properties and larger developments. We were the power couple our friends both admired and envied. I supported Michael through intense work periods, understanding when he missed dinner or came home after midnight. I brought him coffee during weekend work sessions and listened attentively when he needed to process complex deals. When he traveled for business, I sent care packages to his hotel rooms. My own business allowed flexibility that his corporate position didn't, so I often adjusted my schedule to accommodate his. For our third anniversary, we traveled to Japan, a trip I primarily planned while Michael was closing a major acquisition. I researched the best ryokans, arranged for private tea ceremonies, and secured reservations at restaurants with months-long waiting lists. Michael expressed genuine gratitude for my efforts, promising that for our fourth anniversary, he would handle everything. Next year will be different, he assured me as we returned home. The Anderson merger will be complete, and I'll have more breathing room. I'll plan something spectacular for our fourth. As our fourth anniversary approached, I noticed subtle changes in our dynamic. Michael's work hours extended even after the Anderson merger completed. He seemed perpetually distracted, often checking his phone during our limited time together. But I rationalized his behavior as dedication to his career, something I'd always admired and supported. I still believed in us, in the foundation we'd built. I still trusted the man who'd looked into my eyes and promised to grow together. I had no idea how completely that trust was misplaced, or how soon I would discover the truth. The first hint that something wasn't right came about 6 months before our anniversary. The changes were subtle enough that I could dismiss each one individually. Michael started keeping his phone face down. He began taking calls in another room, voice lowered. The affectionate texts throughout the day dwindled, replaced by brief, functional messages about schedules and household matters. Physical intimacy decreased gradually. He began claiming exhaustion most nights, falling asleep with his back to me. When we did connect physically, something felt mechanical, as though he was going through motions rather than being present. But relationships ebb and flow, I told myself. This was just a phase. My best friend Rachel noticed before I allowed myself to. During our monthly lunch date at our favorite Thai restaurant, she watched me check my phone repeatedly, hoping for a response from Michael about weekend plans. "When was the last time he initiated plans with you?" she asked carefully, stirring her tom yum soup. "He's just busy," I replied automatically. "The Fisher account is consuming everyone at the firm." Rachel set down her spoon. "Jessica, you've been saying that for months. Different accounts, same story." I changed the subject, uncomfortable with her implications. Rachel had been through a messy divorce 2 years earlier and sometimes projected her experiences onto others. At least, that's what I told myself. In March, Michael went to Chicago for what should have been a 3-day conference. On the second evening, I called his hotel room to wish him good night. When the front desk connected me, there was no answer. I texted him and received a reply 20 minutes later, in a dinner meeting with clients. "Call you tomorrow." The next morning, his social media showed he'd been tagged in photos at a Bulls game the previous night. No clients visible, just Michael and his colleagues from the office, including a young blonde woman I didn't recognize. When I mentioned it casually upon his return, he explained it as a last-minute invitation from an important client who had a corporate box. "You know how these things work, Jess." The client changed plans, and we had to adapt. In April, I was organizing our closet when I found a Tiffany & Company receipt in his suit jacket. The purchase, a platinum bracelet with a heart charm, was dated 2 days before Valentine's Day. My gift had been a leather portfolio, not jewelry. When confronted, Michael seemed momentarily flustered before explaining it was for his mother's birthday. I almost called Patricia to thank her for raising such a thoughtful son, but something stopped me. Later, I checked and confirmed her birthday was in September, not February. Around this time, Michael began mentioning a new intern at work named Amber. Initially, these mentions seemed casual and professional. Amber compiled an impressive market analysis. Amber found a discrepancy in the quarterly projections. The references increased in frequency, though becoming Amber suggested this great lunch spot near the office, and Amber has an interesting perspective on cryptocurrency. I met her at the firm's spring party. 20 years old, still in college and interning part-time, with delicate features and an eager intelligence. She spoke about Michael with unmistakable admiration, touching her neck and hair frequently as she described how much she was learning from him. I noticed Michael keeping his distance from us during that conversation, watching from across the room with an expression I couldn't quite decipher. As May arrived, I initiated conversations about our upcoming anniversary in July. I suggested several options. Returning to Napa where he'd proposed, a secluded cabin in the mountains, or perhaps a culinary tour of New Orleans. Michael responded with noncommittal interest, always redirecting to "let's decide closer to the date," or "I need to check the project timeline first." By June, I'd stopped suggesting options, instead asking directly, "Have you thought about our anniversary plans?" His responses grew vaguer. "I've got some ideas," or "it's on my radar." Despite his earlier promise to plan something special, he seemed to be avoiding the topic entirely. Still, I maintained optimism. Maybe he was planning a surprise. Maybe work truly was overwhelming him. Maybe the pressure of the senior investment director role was taking a toll I didn't fully understand. I decided to be the supportive wife I'd always been and planned a special anniversary dinner at home, regardless of what he might be arranging. 2 weeks before our anniversary, I overheard a fragment of a phone conversation before Michael noticed my presence and quickly ended the call. "Yes, 7:30 works perfectly. I'm looking forward to it too," he said, his voice carrying a warmth I hadn't heard directed at me recently. When he turned and saw me, his expression shifted instantly. "Gotta go," he said into the phone, then explained to me, "Just finalizing a client meeting." The morning of our anniversary arrived. I woke early and prepared Michael's favorite breakfast, blueberry pancakes with real maple syrup and crispy bacon. He seemed genuinely appreciative, kissing my forehead before heading to the door. "Happy anniversary, babe," he said, adjusting his tie. "I should be home around 7. Don't go to any trouble for dinner." "Are we going out?" I asked, hope rising. He paused, hand on the doorknob. "Let's play it by ear. This deal might run late." I watched him leave, fighting the sinking feeling in my stomach. Before I could overthink it, I decided to focus on making our evenings special regardless. I would prepare his favorite meal, create a romantic atmosphere, and celebrate our 4 years together properly. I still believed we were worth celebrating. I spent the afternoon preparing a perfect anniversary dinner. I selected Michael's favorite Chilean sea bass, marinating it in a miso glaze. I prepared wasabi mashed potatoes and roasted asparagus with lemon zest. For dessert, I recreated the chocolate soufflé from the restaurant where we'd had our first date. I set our dining table with the fine china we'd received as wedding gifts but rarely used, polished the silver candle holders inherited from my grandmother, and arranged white roses and hydrangeas as a centerpiece. By 6:30, everything was ready. I changed into the midnight blue dress Michael had once said brought out the gold flecks in my eyes, applied light makeup, and opened a bottle of the Barolo we'd brought back from our trip to Italy. The house smelled amazing, soft jazz played in the background, and candles created the perfect ambience. At 6:45, my phone chimed with a text message. "Stuck at work. Last-minute crisis with the Westbrook portfolio. Don't wait up." "Sorry, babe." I stared at the message, disappointment washing over me. Not even a mention of our anniversary. No suggestion to reschedule. Just a casual dismissal of the day we'd promised to cherish each other. I typed and deleted several responses before settling on a simple "okay." I sat at our beautifully set table alone, pouring myself a glass of wine. The food would get cold. The candles would burn down. Another anniversary would pass with Michael prioritizing work over our marriage. This had become our pattern, but something about this particular disappointment cut deeper. Almost unconsciously, I opened our shared location app. We'd started using it years ago for practical reasons, to coordinate airport pickups and meeting places. I rarely checked it anymore, but some instinct prompted me now. Michael's location wasn't at his office downtown. The blue dot pulsed gently over Le Petit Chateau, the most exclusive French restaurant in the city. Reservations required months in advance. Dinner for two easily costing $500 without wine. My hands trembled slightly as I set down my phone. There could be an explanation. Perhaps a last-minute client dinner. Perhaps the Westbrook portfolio crisis involved taking important clients out to smooth things over. But on our anniversary? Without even telling me? I picked up my phone again and called the restaurant, an idea forming that I desperately hoped would prove wrong. Le Petit Chateau, how may I assist you? Answered a polished voice. Yes, I believe my husband made a reservation for tonight, I said, forcing confidence into my voice. Last name Harrington, Michael Harrington. Let me check, madam. A brief pause. Yes, Mr. Harrington's reservation was for 7:30. Table for two in our alcove section. Would you like me to leave him a message? When did he make this reservation? I asked, my mouth dry. Another pause. It appears the reservation was made 2 weeks ago, madam. Is there a problem? No, I managed. No message necessary. Thank you. 2 weeks ago. Not a last-minute client emergency. A planned dinner. Table for two in the romantic alcove section. I sat motionless at our anniversary table, my mind racing through possibilities, each worse than the last. I could call him out via text. I could show up at the restaurant making a scene. I could pretend I knew nothing and confront him when he came home with whatever lie he'd prepared. Instead, I changed into jeans and a simple top, grabbed my car keys, and drove toward Le Petit Chateau. I needed to see for myself, to know definitively before deciding my next move. I parked across the street, heart pounding as I scanned the restaurant's large windows. The elegant interior glowed warmly, tables filled with couples and small groups enjoying fine French cuisine. I was about to give up when I spotted them. Michael and Amber sat in a secluded alcove, a bottle of champagne chilling beside their table. He was wearing his charcoal gray suit, the one I'd helped him select for important client meetings. She wore a red dress that accentuated her youth, her blonde hair falling in soft waves around her shoulders. Even from a distance, I could see the diamond bracelet on her wrist catching the light. The Tiffany bracelet, I realized with nauseating clarity. As I watched, Michael reached across the table to take her hand. Their fingers intertwined with the easy familiarity of established lovers. He leaned forward to say something that made her laugh, then raised her hand to his lips. When she looked at him, her expression contained the same adoration I'd once seen reflected in my own mirror. The final confirmation came when Michael leaned across the table and kissed her. Not a friendly peck, but a lingering kiss between lovers comfortable with public displays of affection. On our anniversary. In a restaurant he'd never once taken me to despite my hints about wanting to go there. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. A strange calm settled over me as pieces clicked into place. The late nights. The emotional distance. The diminishing intimacy. The phantom client meetings. The business trips with unexplained gaps in communication. The growing mentions of Amber's name in casual conversation. I drove home in a state of eerie composure. When another text came from Michael around 9, I already knew what it would say. Going to be later than expected. Don't wait up. I replied simply, no worry. Those 2 words contained none of the turmoil inside me, none of the betrayal and hurt transforming into cold determination, none of the plans already forming in my mind. I returned to our anniversary table, blew out the melted candles, and placed the untouched food in storage containers. I opened my laptop and began making lists, my methodical nature taking over where emotions failed me. By midnight, I had a clear plan of action and a strange sense of liberation. Michael had made his choice. Now I would make mine. After discovering Michael's betrayal, I moved through our house with purpose, cataloging our life together with new eyes. Each wedding photo, each souvenir from our travels, each piece of furniture we'd selected together now looked like artifacts from a museum of lies. I didn't allow myself to cry. Tears would come later, when I was safely away from the home we'd built on a foundation of deception. In our home office, I pulled out important documents from the filing cabinet. Our marriage certificate, property deeds, insurance policies, and investment portfolios. I spread them across the desk, creating separate piles for joint assets and my personal holdings. Thanks to my independent nature and business savvy, I'd maintained separate accounts alongside our joint finances throughout our marriage. A flood of memories hit me as I worked. Michael's insistence that I was too independent when I declined to merge all our accounts after the wedding. His subtle comments about my trust issues when I purchased investment properties solely in my name. What I defended as financial prudence had actually been intuition protecting me from exactly this scenario. I pulled out our prenuptial agreement, reviewing the terms with newfound appreciation for my past self's foresight. The document clearly stated that assets acquired before marriage and investments derived from those premarital assets remained separate property. My real estate empire was protected. Around 1 a.m, I called my sister Lauren. Despite the hour, she answered on the second ring. "Jess? What's wrong?" Her voice, thick with sleep, immediately sharpened with concern. "Michael's having an affair," I stated flatly. "I need your help." To Lauren's credit, she didn't waste time with platitudes or expressions of disbelief. "I'm on my way over," she said immediately. "No," I stopped her. "He's not home. And I don't want him to know I know yet. I need strategic advice, not emotional support right now." Over the next hour, Lauren and I crafted a comprehensive exit plan. As a divorce attorney, she understood the importance of preparation before confrontation. "Document everything," she advised. "Bank statements, communication records, evidence of the affair if you have it. Information is leverage." After ending the call with Lauren, I logged into our shared cloud storage, downloading financial records, text message backups, and photos. I forwarded suspicious emails Michael had accidentally left open on our shared computer over the past months. I took screenshots of his location history, including tonight's visit to Le Petit Chateau. Then I called Katie, my executive assistant. Despite the late hour, she answered professionally. "I need the Mapleton property prepared for immediate occupancy," I told her. "And I need absolute discretion." The Mapleton Mansion was my most recent investment, a 7-bedroom estate in the exclusive Palmer Heights neighborhood. I'd purchased it 6 months ago as a potential luxury rental property, but hadn't yet decided on its final purpose. Michael knew about most of my properties, but not this one. I'd closed the deal during his Chicago trip, and with our growing distance, I never got around to mentioning it. With Katie mobilized to prepare the property, I began methodically packing my personal belongings. I started with items Michael would be unlikely to notice immediately: winter clothes stored in the guest room closet, books from my office, family heirlooms I kept in the storage room. I worked silently, efficiently, the way I approached business deals when emotions couldn't be afforded. While sorting through my jewelry box, I paused at my wedding and engagement rings. The emerald-cut diamond caught the light, sending tiny rainbows across the bedroom wall. I remembered Michael's proposal, his promises of building something lasting together. With steady hands, I placed both rings in a small velvet pouch and tucked them into my purse. Not yet ready to remove them permanently, but no longer willing to wear symbols of broken promises. I accessed Michael's laptop, using the password I'd seen him enter countless times when he thought I wasn't paying attention. His browser history confirmed regular visits to jewelry stores beyond the Tiffany bracelet, dinner reservations at restaurants we'd never visited together, and hotel bookings on days he'd claimed to be working late. I forwarded everything to my secure email before carefully returning the computer to its exact position. In our walk-in closet, I selected essential clothing items, leaving behind anything Michael had gifted me. Each blouse or dress he'd complimented received careful consideration before being either packed or left behind. The blue cashmere sweater he loved, left hanging. The tailored blazer I'd purchased myself, carefully folded into my suitcase. As dawn approached, I stood in our bedroom, surveying the space we'd shared for nearly 4 years. The king-sized bed where we'd made love and made plans for the future. The reading nook where I'd curled up with contracts while Michael worked beside me. The photographs on the dresser documenting happier times. I lifted our wedding photo, tracing the outline of our smiling faces. We looked so certain, so committed to the path ahead. I placed the frame face down on the dresser, a symbolic act of closure. By 6:30, my essential belongings were packed in suitcases and boxes, loaded into my Range Rover. Michael wouldn't be home for hours yet, probably crafting an elaborate lie about his all-night work emergency. I took one final walk through the house, mentally saying goodbye not just to the space, but to the future I'd envisioned within these walls. In the kitchen, I wrote a brief note and left it on the counter. I know about Amber. Don't contact me. My lawyer will be in touch. Direct, indisputable, offering no room for manipulation or false explanations. As I pulled out of our driveway for the last time, the morning sun crested over the hills, casting long shadows across the neighborhood. Symbolically fitting, I thought, as I drove away from the darkening shadow of my marriage and toward the dawning light of independence reclaimed. The gates of the Mapleton property swung open automatically as my car approached. Katie had implemented the security system months ago when I purchased the estate, programming my vehicle for immediate recognition. As I drove up the curved driveway, the magnitude of my decisions settled over me. This wasn't just an escape, it was a reclamation of my life. The mansion stood 3 stories tall, its stone facade and large windows emanating quiet dignity. Originally built in the 1930s for a timber baron, the property had fallen into neglect before I discovered it. I'd spent considerable resources restoring its original features while modernizing the infrastructure. 12-foot ceilings, original hardwood floors, and hand-carved moldings blended seamlessly with updated plumbing, wiring, and smart home technology. Katie waited at the front entrance, her typically immaculate appearance somewhat hurried given the early hour and urgent circumstances. Beside her stood Marco, my head of property security. "Everything's ready, Ms. Harrington," Katie said, then hesitated. "Or would you prefer Ms. Mitchell again?" The question startled me. I hadn't even considered returning to my maiden name. Mitchell, I decided. Jessica Mitchell. Marco helped unload my vehicle while Katie gave me a tour of the prepared living spaces. The master suite occupied the entire east wing of the second floor, featuring a sitting area with fireplace, expansive bathroom with soaking tub, and a walk-in closet larger than my first apartment. Katie had arranged fresh flowers throughout, stocked the kitchen with essentials, and even placed my preferred lavender sachets in the dresser drawers. "The security system has been fully activated," she explained, demonstrating the control panel. "No one enters without approval through the gate intercom or your personal authorization. Marco will remain on property for the next 72 hours as an additional precaution." I nodded gratefully, though I doubted Michael would attempt anything dramatic once he discovered my departure. Public scenes weren't his style, especially ones that might damage his professional reputation. After Katie and Marco left, I stood alone in the grand entryway, listening to the unfamiliar silence. No Michael humming while making coffee. No NPR playing in the background. No shared morning routine choreographed over years of cohabitation. Exhaustion suddenly overwhelmed me. I'd been operating on adrenaline and determination for nearly 24 hours. I made my way to the master bedroom, not bothering to unpack or even change clothes. I slipped under the covers of my new bed and finally allowed the tears to come. I cried for the love I thought was real, for the 4 years invested in a relationship built on deception, for the future I'd planned with a man who couldn't even honor our anniversary. When I woke hours later, afternoon sunlight streamed through unfamiliar windows. For a disorienting moment, I thought I was in a luxury hotel during a business trip. Then reality crashed back. I checked my phone, 17 missed calls and 29 text messages from Michael. The first texts expressed confusion. Where are you? Did you go to Lawrence? Call me when you get this. As hours passed without response, his messages grew increasingly desperate. Jessica, I'm worried. Please just let me know you're safe. Whatever's wrong, we can talk about it. I'm calling hospitals. This isn't like you. The final messages revealed he'd found my note. It's not what you think. Please let me explain. We need to talk face to face. You're overreacting. Amber means nothing to me. For years of marriage deserves more than a note. I read each message without responding, archiving them as potential evidence. Then I called Rachel. Thank God, she answered immediately. Are you okay? Michael's been calling everyone trying to find you. I'm fine, I assured her. Better than fine, actually. I'm free. After bringing Rachel up to speed, I spent the remainder of the day setting up my new home office. Work had always been my sanctuary, and now it would be my salvation as well. I contacted key clients to update my information, carefully explaining I was working from a new location without elaborating on personal circumstances. Around 7 that evening, Michael's calls became more frequent. I silenced my phone but noticed his voicemails growing increasingly agitated. In the last one, he sounded both angry and frightened. Jessica, this silent treatment is childish. I'm your husband. You can't just disappear with no explanation. Whatever you think you know, you're wrong. I'm coming to Lawrence to find you. I texted Lauren a warning, though I knew she wouldn't reveal my location. Then I made a strategic decision. Rather than block Michael's number, I would monitor his unraveling. Information was power, and his reaction would tell me much about how to proceed. The next morning, I met with Diane Levinson, the divorce attorney Lauren had recommended. Unlike my sister who handled mostly amicable separations, Diane specialized in high-asset divorces with complex financial considerations. Based on what you've shown me, the prenup should hold, Diane confirmed after reviewing my documents. His infidelity actually strengthens your position should he contest anything. Virginia is still a fault-based divorce state when infidelity is involved. With legal proceedings initiated, I turned my attention to my business. Work had always been my therapy, and now I threw myself into it completely. I scheduled site visits to ongoing development projects, initiated new marketing strategies for properties nearing completion, and reconnected with investors I'd somewhat neglected while trying to save my failing marriage. 3 days after my departure, Michael finally tracked me down, not at my new home, but at my downtown office. He bypassed my assistant, bursting through my door with the entitled confidence of a man accustomed to getting his way. What the hell, Jessica? He demanded, his normally perfectly styled hair disheveled, his eyes red-rimmed from either lack of sleep or tears. You disappear without a word, leave a cryptic accusatory note, ignore my calls, and file for divorce? After 4 years of marriage, I remained seated behind my desk, my posture deliberately relaxed though my heart hammered in my chest. Please close the door, I said calmly. I'd rather not entertain the entire office with our personal business. Michael shut the door but remained standing, agitation evident in his restless movements. This is insane. Whatever you think is happening with Amber, you're blowing it completely out of proportion. She's an intern, for God's sake. An intern you were kissing at Le Petit Chateau on our anniversary, I stated flatly. An intern wearing the Tiffany bracelet you bought in February. An intern you've been sleeping with for months while lying to my face. His expression cycled rapidly through shock, denial, and calculation before settling on contrition. Okay, yes, there was a momentary lapse in judgment. One stupid mistake that meant nothing. You're really throwing away our marriage over one indiscretion. One? I raised an eyebrow, opening a folder on my desk. The Westin Hotel on March 18th during your Chicago conference. The unexplained charges at Cartier in April. The weekend business retreat in May when your location showed you at a cabin in the mountains. I closed the folder. Would you like me to continue? Michael paled visibly, his rehearsed explanations crumbling. His strategy shifted instantly. Fine. Yes, I made mistakes. But people overcome infidelity all the time. We can get counseling. I'll end things with Amber immediately. Our life together is worth fighting for. Our life together ended the moment you decided I wasn't enough, I replied evenly. I won't compete for my husband's affection, and I won't be married to someone I can't trust. You can't just walk away from everything we've built, he tried again, desperation creeping into his voice. The house, our investments, our future plans. Actually, I can. The house can be sold, with proceeds divided according to our prenup. My business remains mine, as stipulated in the agreement you signed. Your retirement accounts and bonuses are yours to keep. His expression darkened. You've been planning this. No, Michael. You planned this the first time you decided our vows were optional. I'm simply responding with the self-respect you assumed I lacked. As reality settled over him, his approach changed yet again. Where are you even staying? You can't possibly have arranged a new place so quickly. I own a real estate company, Michael. Finding suitable accommodations isn't exactly challenging for me. This reminder of my independence seemed to deflate him further. He sank into the chair across from my desk, suddenly looking smaller than I'd ever seen him. I never meant to hurt you, he said quietly. And yet you made deliberate choices, repeatedly, that you knew would devastate me if discovered, I responded. That's the difference between a mistake and a betrayal, Michael. One happens to you. The other is a choice you make. Our conversation ended shortly after, with Michael leaving in a confused daze, his world upended just as mine had been days earlier. The difference was I had already begun rebuilding mine, while he was only starting to comprehend what he'd lost. That evening, Lauren called to report that rumors were already circulating in our social circle. Michael's business partner James had called to express his concern and support for me. Apparently, Amber had posted a cryptic social media update about complicated relationships that sparked speculation among those who had seen us together at company events. James said the firm has a strict policy against relationships between supervisors and interns, Lauren explained. Michael could face professional consequences beyond just personal ones. I took no satisfaction in this news. Despite everything, I didn't wish for Michael's professional destruction. But I recognized the pattern. Actions have consequences, often beyond those initially anticipated. Michael had gambled with multiple aspects of his life, not just our marriage. As days turned into weeks, I established new routines in my mansion. Morning coffee on the East Terrace, watching the sunrise. Evening swims in the indoor pool to clear my mind after work. Weekly dinners with Lauren and Rachel, my support system through the transition. The pain didn't disappear, but it evolved into something manageable, something that fueled my determination rather than crippling it. Somewhat surprisingly, my business thrived during this period of personal turmoil. Perhaps channeling my energy into work provided the perfect distraction, or maybe the clarity that came from removing Michael's betrayal from my life sharpened my business instincts. Whatever the reason, my company closed 3 major development deals within a month of my departure, each more profitable than projected. Independence wasn't new to me, but reclaiming it after years of compromise felt like discovering a forgotten strength. Each decision made solely on my preferences, each evening spent exactly as I wished, reinforced the rightness of my choice to leave. The mansion on Mapleton Drive gradually transformed from an escape to a sanctuary, from a temporary solution to a true home. 3 weeks after I left our shared home, Michael requested a meeting through our respective attorneys. Diane advised against it, suggesting all communication remain through legal channels, but I decided to hear him out. We agreed to meet at a neutral location, a private room at the city club where neither of us held membership. I arrived 15 minutes early, choosing a seat with my back to the wall and a clear view of the door. When Michael entered, I was struck by his appearance. Always meticulously groomed, he now sported several days of stubble, and his tailored suit hung slightly loose on his frame, as though he'd lost weight rapidly. "Thank you for coming," he began, remaining standing until I gestured toward the chair across from me. I wanted to speak directly, without lawyers filtering our communication. "I'm listening," I replied neutrally. Michael took a deep breath. "I've ended things with Amber completely. I've requested a transfer to the Boston office to remove any potential ongoing contact. I'm seeing a therapist twice weekly to understand why I sabotaged the best thing in my life." He leaned forward. "I want to try again, Jessica. I love you. I made terrible mistakes, but our marriage deserves another chance." "Did you rehearse that speech?" I asked quietly. "Did you practice it in front of your bathroom mirror, adjusting your expression to hit the right notes of contrition and determination?" He flinched. "That's not fair. Neither was celebrating our anniversary with your girlfriend while I sat alone at a table set for two." "I know. It was unforgivable." He reached for my hand, which I smoothly withdrew. "But people overcome worse. We could get counseling, rebuild trust gradually. Start fresh." I studied him, searching for the man I'd fallen in love with. He was still physically present in the familiar angle of his jaw, the small scar above his right eyebrow from a childhood fall, the deep brown eyes that once made me feel seen. But something fundamental had changed, not just in him, but in my perception of him. "This isn't about Amber," I said finally. "She's a symptom, not the disease. The disease was your willingness to lie to my face day after day. Your calculation that my trust was worth sacrificing for momentary pleasure. Your fundamental belief that your wants superseded our commitment." "I never thought of it that way," he protested. "That's precisely the problem. You didn't think about me at all." Our conversation circled similar ground for nearly an hour. Michael cycling through strategies, apologizing profusely, minimizing the affair's significance, suggesting my business focus had created distance between us, offering couples therapy and a fresh start in a new home. When none gained traction, he finally shifted to financial matters. "You know this divorce will impact both of us financially," he said. "The housing market's volatile right now. Selling the tutor could mean taking a loss. And there are tax implications to unwinding our joint investments mid-year. I'm familiar with real estate markets and investment strategies," I reminded him. "The tutor will sell within 30 days at or above asking price with proper staging and marketing. As for our investments, the prenuptial outlines clear separation protocols." Michael's expression hardened. "That prenup was signed under different circumstances. I could contest it, argue it doesn't account for my contributions to your business growth during our marriage." I had anticipated this threat. "You could try. But then I would be forced to submit evidence of your multiple infidelities, expense account misuse for personal gifts to Amber, and hotel charges for rendezvous during supposed business trips. How would Prescott and Shaw view that information?" The implied threat to his professional reputation landed precisely as intended. Michael paled, then flushed with anger. "So that's it? Scorched earth? Destroy everything if you don't get exactly what you want?" "No, Michael. I'm simply establishing boundaries. Follow the prenup we both willingly signed, and your professional reputation remains intact. Choose litigation, and all information becomes potential public record." He stood abruptly, pacing the small room. "You've changed. The Jessica I married wasn't this cold. The Jessica you married believed her husband honored their vows. Adaptation is necessary for survival. Our meeting ended shortly after, with Michael agreeing to proceed with the divorce as outlined in the prenuptial agreement. As he reached the door, he turned back, his expression a complex mixture of regret and resentment. "I did love you, you know. It wasn't all a lie." "I know," I acknowledged. "That's what makes your choices all the more incomprehensible." News of our separation spread quickly through our social and professional circles, accelerated by Michael's noticeable absence from key business functions and my solo appearances at charity events. Most friends expressed shock, having viewed us as the ideal power couple. A few admitted they'd noticed changes in Michael's behavior, but hadn't wanted to interfere. James, Michael's business partner, called me directly in early September. After awkward expressions of sympathy, he revealed the professional consequences Michael now faced. "The firm has a zero-tolerance policy for relationships between supervisors and subordinates, especially interns," he explained uncomfortably. "There's an ethics committee review scheduled next week." "I thought you should know." "I didn't report him, James." "I know. Amber did, after he ended things." Claimed emotional distress and preferential treatment during their involvement. Says she has text messages proving he promised to leave his wife months ago. This new information hit harder than expected. While I'd known about the affair, learning Michael had discussed leaving me brought fresh pain. The constructed timeline of our marriage's demise had been revised yet again, pushing the betrayal back even further than I'd realized. Michael's parents called the following week. I almost declined Patricia's call, but curiosity won out. "We owe you an apology," she began without preamble. "Richard and I raised our son to be a better man than this." "You're not responsible for his choices," I replied, surprised by their approach. "Perhaps not directly, but we've realized we enabled certain patterns throughout his life." Consequences mysteriously disappeared. Problems were solved with money and connections. Patricia's voice carried genuine regret. "We wanted to tell you we're deeply disappointed in Michael, not in you. You've been nothing but good for him." "Thank you," I said, unexpectedly moved by their support. "That means more than you know." The professional and social fallout intensified when Amber, perhaps seeking revenge for Michael ending their relationship, posted thinly veiled references to their affair on social media. Without naming names, her posts about married men making promises they won't keep and workplace power dynamics contained enough specific details that connections were easily made. Michael called in a panic. "She's destroying my reputation." The ethics committee has expanded their investigation. James is distancing himself from joint projects. Clients are requesting different advisors. "Those sound like consequences of your actions, not mine," I observed. "Can't you help?" A statement saying our separation wasn't related to infidelity? Something to calm the waters. The audacity of his request left me momentarily speechless. "You want me to lie to protect the reputation you damaged through your own choices?" "I'm fighting for my career here, Jessica. And I'm rebuilding the life you shattered." We each have our priorities. Perhaps the most unexpected development during this period was the growth of my business. Without the emotional drain of maintaining a failing marriage, my focus and creativity flourished. A major development opportunity arose when a competing firm facing bankruptcy needed to offload prime commercial properties quickly. The acquisition positioned my company for unprecedented expansion. Financial journalists covering the deal inevitably mentioned my ongoing divorce, creating a narrative of personal and professional transformation that resonated with clients and investors. While I never discussed my private life in business contexts, the subtext of resilience and strategic thinking enhanced rather than damaged my professional reputation. 6 weeks after our separation, Michael requested another meeting. This time we met at my office after hours, with my assistant staying late as a precautionary presence in the outer office. The man who entered barely resembled the confident investment director I'd married. Michael had lost significant weight, his expensive suit replaced by casual clothes that hung awkwardly on his frame. When he spoke, The polished charm that had once been his signature was noticeably absent. "The ethics committee voted yesterday," he began without preamble. "I've been placed on indefinite administrative leave. James has bought out my partnership stake at a reduced valuation. 3 major clients have transferred their portfolios to other advisors." He ran a hand through his unkempt hair. "My career is essentially over." "I'm sorry to hear that," I said, and meant it. Despite everything, I took no pleasure in his professional destruction. "Are you?" he asked bitterly. "This is what you wanted, isn't it? Complete victory. You're thriving while I lose everything. I wanted a faithful husband and an honest marriage. Those were my goals, Michael, not your destruction. The current circumstances are the natural consequences of choices you made repeatedly over an extended period." He slumped in the chair across from my desk. "Amber's gone too. Found someone else within weeks. Some tech entrepreneur with a yacht and startup money." A hollow laugh escaped him. "I destroyed my marriage, my career, and my reputation for someone who replaced me without a backward glance." The irony wasn't lost on either of us. I felt a complex mixture of vindication, pity, and lingering grief for what might have been. We sat in silence for several minutes before Michael spoke again. "I keep trying to understand why I did it. My therapist talks about self-sabotage, fear of success, validation-seeking behavior." He looked up, his eyes red-rimmed. "But the truth is simpler and worse. I did it because I thought I could get away with it. Because I didn't value what we had enough to protect it." His raw honesty, arriving too late to save our marriage, but perhaps early enough to save his character, affected me deeply. For the first time since discovering his betrayal, I allowed myself to really see his pain without filtering it through my own. "What will you do now?" I asked. "Start over somewhere new. Boston, maybe, or Chicago. Rebuild from scratch." He attempted a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "I learned from the best, after all." "You've always known how to create something from nothing." As he prepared to leave, Michael turned at the door. "I know it's meaningless now, but I am truly sorry, Jessica. Not just for getting caught, but for betraying the best person I've ever known. I hope someday you'll find someone worthy of your trust." After he left, I remained at my desk, processing the conversation. His apology, perhaps the first genuine one he'd offered, came too late to change our trajectory, but provided a different kind of closure than I'd anticipated. Not the satisfaction of revenge, but the quieter peace of a chapter truly ending. The divorce proceeded without further complications, finalized exactly 6 months after our last anniversary. Michael accepted the terms of the prenuptial agreement without contest. The house sold for above asking price in a surprisingly robust market, and our joint assets were divided according to our original agreement. He relocated to Boston the following week, making a clean break from the city where his personal and professional reputation had unraveled so completely. I retained my maiden name, shedding the last visible connection to our shared life. Jessica Mitchell, restored both legally and spiritually, ready to write the next chapter on my own terms. 6 months after finalizing my divorce, I stood on the terrace of my Mapleton Drive mansion, watching the sunset paint the sky in spectacular shades of pink and gold. The property no longer felt like an escape or temporary solution, but truly home. I'd redecorated several rooms, replacing the neutral palette originally chosen for rental appeal with colors and textures that reflected my personal taste. The master suite now featured deep emerald accents. The dining room gleamed with subtle gold fixtures, and the home office showcased the contemporary art collection I'd always loved, but Michael had considered too abstract. The divorce had been finalized with surprising efficiency, our prenuptial agreement holding firm against potential challenges. The Tudor homes sold within 3 weeks of listing, achieving 12% above asking price despite Michael's pessimistic market predictions. My attorney, Diane, had negotiated the final details with ruthless precision, ensuring my business interests remained completely protected while providing a fair division of truly joint assets. News of Michael's relocation to Boston had reached me through mutual acquaintances. He'd accepted a significantly lower-level position at a smaller firm, the prestigious doors of major investment banks now closed to him after the ethics investigation. According to James, who maintained occasional contact, Michael was humbled but adapting, focusing on rebuilding his career from a more modest starting point. I harbored no ill will toward him now. The white-hot anger of betrayal had gradually cooled into something more like distant compassion for someone who had self-destructed through poor choices. Occasionally I wondered if he'd found the insight his therapist had encouraged, or if he'd simply adapted his behavior to avoid similar consequences in the future. Either way, his journey was no longer connected to mine. My own healing process had progressed in unexpected ways. Initially, I'd thrown myself into work as both distraction and affirmation, expanding my business portfolio and pursuing aggressive growth strategies. The approach had proven financially rewarding but emotionally limiting. 3 months after the divorce, at Lauren's gentle insistence, I began working with a therapist specializing in betrayal trauma. Dr. Melissa Carter helped me understand that my methodical, controlled response to Michael's infidelity, while impressive and self-protective, had allowed me to bypass rather than process certain emotional aspects of the betrayal. Our weekly sessions created space to acknowledge anger, grief, and damaged trust without undermining the strength I'd demonstrated throughout the separation. Building a new home and expanding your business are positive actions, she explained during one particularly insightful session. But healing also requires recognizing what was lost and allowing yourself to feel that loss fully before truly moving forward. This guidance led to reconnections with friends I'd somewhat neglected during my marriage. Rachel and I resumed our monthly lunch dates, now expanded to include theater outings and occasional weekend trips to the coast. My college roommate Allison, who had moved back to the area after her own divorce 2 years earlier, became a regular hiking companion. Lauren and I established Sunday morning brunch as sacred sister time, strengthening a bond that had sometimes been overshadowed by my marriage. These revitalized friendships provided not just social connection, but perspectives that challenged my tendency toward emotional self-containment. When Rachel bluntly observed that I discussed my divorce with the same detached analysis I applied to property acquisitions, I recognized a defense mechanism that had outlived its usefulness. My business continued to thrive, though I'd adjusted my approach to success. Rather than pursuing growth for its own sake, I became more selective about projects, choosing those that aligned with both profit potential and personal satisfaction. I launched a foundation focused on housing security for domestic violence survivors, using my real estate expertise to create pathways to stable housing for women rebuilding their lives after leaving damaging relationships. 6 months after the divorce, I received an unexpected email from Michael. Brief and surprisingly humble, it shared news of his acceptance into a specialized therapy program for relationship patterns and expressed gratitude for our time together despite how it ended. The message neither requested nor expected a response, simply offering a moment of respectful acknowledgement before our paths diverged completely. I chose not to reply, appreciating the closure, but recognizing that further communication served neither of us. The past was firmly behind me, its lessons incorporated, but its grip released. On a crisp autumn evening, attending a fundraiser for my foundation, I met Ethan Prescott, an architect specializing in sustainable urban development. Our conversation about affordable housing innovations flowed naturally into broader topics, revealing shared values and complementary perspectives. When he asked for my business card, suggesting a meeting to discuss potential collaboration, I found myself intrigued by possibilities that extended beyond professional interests. We met the following week for coffee, ostensibly to discuss a project combining luxury and affordable units in a downtown revitalization area. The business discussion evolved into a 3-hour conversation covering everything from childhood influences to favorite hiking trails. Ethan's thoughtful questions and genuine interest reminded me how engaging true connection could be, without feeling pressured to pursue it beyond its natural evolution. 2 coffee meetings became occasional dinners, shared with the explicit understanding that I wasn't ready for a relationship, but enjoyed his company. Ethan's patient respect for my boundaries, coupled with his own complete lack of pressure, created space for authentic friendship that might or might not develop further. For the first time since my marriage ended, I allowed myself to appreciate a man's company without analyzing its trajectory or protecting against potential harm. Through Lauren's legal connections, I occasionally heard updates about Michael. 6 months after leaving for Boston, he'd been let go during company downsizing, the newest hire being the most vulnerable. He'd relocated again, this time to Seattle, starting over completely in a city with no connections to his past. More surprisingly, I learned that Amber had briefly dated then quickly discarded the tech entrepreneur, moving on to a series of relationships that followed similar patterns of attachment to powerful men. This information arrived without the emotional charge it might once have carried. Their stories had separated from mine, becoming distant narratives rather than chapters in my ongoing experience. I wish them both well in a general, detached way, the same courtesy I might extend to former colleagues or distant acquaintances. My mansion on Mapleton Drive continued to evolve as a reflection of my personal growth. I converted one wing into a showcase for women artists, hosting quarterly exhibitions featuring emerging talent. The formal dining room, initially maintained for theoretical future entertaining, transformed into a conference space where my foundation held workshops for women establishing financial independence after leaving difficult relationships. As the 1-year anniversary of my divorce approached, I planned a small gathering of my closest supporters. Lauren, Rachel, Allison, Katie, my loyal assistant, and several other women who had provided wisdom and companionship during my transition. The evening wasn't about celebrating the end of my marriage, but acknowledging the strength found in its aftermath and expressing gratitude for the community that had emerged from its dissolution. During that gathering, sitting among women whose friendship had proven more enduring than romantic promises, I shared reflections that had crystallized during months of healing. The greatest betrayal wasn't the affair, I told them, but the theft of informed choice. Every day Michael lied was a day he denied me the ability to make decisions about my own life based on complete information. That's what trust ultimately protects, our right to make choices with clear understanding of their context. Lauren raised her glass. To making informed choices from now on. And to recognizing red flags instead of repainting them, Rachel added, drawing knowing laughter. The gathering continued late into the evening, conversations flowing between serious reflections and light-hearted plans for future adventures. As my friends departed with warm embraces and promises of continued connection, I stood in the doorway of my home, watching taillights disappear down the winding driveway. In that moment of quiet reflection, I acknowledged how completely my life had transformed in a single year. From the shock of betrayal to the strategic exit, from rebuilding a solitary life to creating a richly connected community of support. The path had been neither straight nor painless, but each step had brought me closer to an authentic life aligned with my deepest values. Michael's betrayal had initially seemed like the end of something vital, a devastating conclusion to years of shared dreams. In reality, it had become the catalyst for reclaiming aspects of myself subordinated to marriage, for establishing healthier relationships in all areas of life, and for creating a future based on genuine self-knowledge rather than compromised accommodation. I didn't know if Ethan would become an important part of that future or remain a pleasant connection during this period of growth. I didn't know which business ventures would flourish or which new opportunities might emerge. The difference now was that uncertainty felt like possibility rather than threat, an open landscape of potential rather than a precipice of risk. What was your most important realization after leaving a relationship that no longer served you? Have you ever discovered strength you didn't know you possessed during difficult transitions? Share your experiences in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories of resilience and growth. Thank you for joining me on this journey, and remember, sometimes the end of one chapter is exactly what you need to write a better story.